Right, let's continue with your news. This hour, the South African Consumer Tribunal is clamping down on unscrupulous car dealers. Between 50,000 and 100,000 rand fines have been issued in the past 14 months to car dealers who refuse to replace defective cars. 31 key cases were heard by the National Consumer Tribunal. 21 of those cases revolved around defective motor vehicles. For more on this, I'm joined by Trudie Broekmann from the Trudie Broekmann Attorneys. She joins us now virtually. Trudie, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. Just tell us, first of all, 21 of these cases have been concluded so far. When was this found out by the Competition Commission? How did we get to where we are today?
These are some recent rulings by the National Consumer Tribunal, and these rulings have been issued over the months. As the rulings are finalized, they are loaded onto the website of the National Consumer Tribunal, and one can go and take a look at those. We're finding that, as you said, 21 of the cases of the rulings that we've seen have revolved specifically around defective motor vehicles and have been against the second-hand motor dealers who sold those vehicles and then refused to pay out the purchase price when it turned out within the first 6 months that those vehicles were in fact defective. And those fines that you spoke about a few minutes ago, of the 6 fines that were imposed by the tribunal in the last 14 months were against second-hand motor dealers. They're sending a message.
And of course, you know, as a consumer, you buy this car and you believe what they tell you, because we're not all engineers. We won't be able to detect what is wrong with the vehicle. But tell me something, Trudie. Through this investigation, you say about 14 months now, was it ever found that any of the cars that had these defects actually caused loss of life?
Not in any of the cases that were before the tribunal right now, but what we have seen from the press is we know that the Ford Cougars that had this defect where they would catch a light, have that a person's life was taken as a result of that. And we've just recently seen that there's been a Ford that has caught a light again. So when you say that a person's life can be taken by a defect in a vehicle, that is absolutely correct.
So is there any way that, for instance, your law firm or lawyers might have cases like this in their hands as a result of this tribunal investigation?
I already have a lot of cases on my desk. If I could show you the rest of my office, there are piles like this of nice thick files where consumers have come to us for help because they purchased a vehicle which turned out to be severely defective. One of my cases, the mechanic looked in underneath the vehicle, which looked absolutely perfect from the outside, and he saw that there were substantial parts of the suspension that were simply missing. Other parts of the vehicle were held together with cable ties. There are some incredibly dangerous vehicles that are sold in South Africa to unsuspecting consumers.
Is there anything else that a customer can, sue for, besides the fact that these dealerships, for instance, just get fines of millions of rands or sometimes hundreds of thousands of rands? Some people would say that's simply not enough. It doesn't, deter other dealerships from making the same mistake. So is there anything else that a consumer can sue for against these dealerships besides a fine?
Certainly. So these fines were imposed by the tribunal in the context of also awarding the purchase price back to the consumer. Yeah. So if you buy a vehicle, within the first 6 months, there's a substantial defect in the vehicle, you are entitled to get your money back. And that's what all of the consumers were suing for before the tribunal. And then on top of the of ordering the second-hand dealership to refund the consumer their full purchase price, they were given these fines of up to 100,000 rand because they didn't do it initially when the consumer came to them and said, vehicle is defective, it's within the first 6 months, I'm cancelling, please give me my money back. And that's the right of the consumer. If you don't have a very serious defect in the vehicle, let's say it's something a bit more cosmetic, it's a scratch, maybe the boot doesn't align nicely, there's a scraping sound, but it doesn't indicate a serious defect in the vehicle, then you can also sue or claim from the second-hand dealership or the dealership if you purchased a new vehicle as well, or the manufacturer. You can claim your repair costs. So consumers are beautifully covered by the Consumer Protection Act in South Africa. They just need to enforce their rights.
Yeah, exactly, and to read up and know what their rights are. But just lastly, in terms of these dealerships that were under investigation by the tribunal, are any of them those those that have a good standing in South Africa? Are any of those, are they all private dealerships, or do you find those reputable ones like your Mercedes or VW? Or is the problem all the way there?
It's hard to work out which dealership really is reputable because as a consumer, we're not experts on the mechanics of vehicles, right? Yeah. Yes, it's a mix of dealerships that are under the manufacturer's name, Mercedes, Toyota, etc. I can't remember all of them. Yeah. But also then the biggest majority are private dealerships where you don't see the manufacturer's name in the title.
And I guess reputable damage is also something that at least is punishable to them.
Yes, one wants to make sure that that the defect that you're claiming for is serious enough, but you can claim for anything, any defect on a vehicle that you've purchased recently. If your defect only arises after the 6-month period has elapsed, maybe in month 7, there's a big rattle and then your gearbox goes, then you can also claim the repair costs. And you need to probably speak to a lawyer about that. Initially, try and get the money from the dealership. What I recommend, so you were speaking about the difference between reputable and not reputable dealerships, dealerships that have the manufacturer's name or the agencies of a particular manufacturer. What I recommend is if you're in the market to purchase a second-hand vehicle, and a second-hand vehicle is generally much better value for money. It's a good idea once you've identified one that you think might be the one for you, to take that vehicle yourself to the agents of that type of vehicle. So you want a Volkswagen, take it to the closest Volkswagen agents and have them check it out. Pay for it yourself. It's the best investment you can make in peace of mind and making sure that you're purchasing, that you're not purchasing a lemon and that you're purchasing a reliable ride for the next many years of your life. Have them check it out and give you a report back on whether they would purchase the vehicle or whether there's serious faults. Then you can also use that report in order to negotiate the price down with the dealership. So that's really where the agents come in. Have them check out the vehicle before you buy, and hopefully you can avoid all of these problems of the consumers that went to the tribunal to claim their money back.
Okay, just lastly, I'm hoping I have time for this. Legally, what is the consumer's right if, for instance, you say that they realize that something is wrong 7 months after the fact instead of the 6-month period, and then whether it's cosmetic or a serious problem, they end up fixing it themselves because they don't know, and now they're listening to you and I and they realize I could have been cheated. Can they still go back and possibly even get that money back that they used instead of the dealership?
Excellent question. Yes, they can. If they spent that money less than 3 years ago. So if you paid for those repair costs yourself somewhere in the last 3 years, yes, certainly you can claim it back. If it's close to the 3-year period, speak to a lawyer urgently. And you probably want to speak to a consumer lawyer who knows the area well, the area of law well.
I wonder what systems they use to see if the problem, especially if it's cosmetic, I wonder what system they use to see if the problem was when you left with it from the dealership or if it was you who scratched the car. But thank you so much for speaking to us here on eNCA and for your time. That was Trudie. She is from the Trudie Broekmann Attorneys.